Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Taiwan Internet Governance Forum. We'll now proceed to the plenary session 1. Following the keynote speech, this session is going to further discuss blockchain DNS and other DNS challenges with Mr. Crain. The moderator for this forum will be Ms. Nicole Chung. Ms. Chung is the former chairperson of Taiwan's National Communication Commission and the member of ICANN, ASO, AC, and RONC. It's a great honor to have her with us today. Welcome, Ms. Chung. Joining Ms. Chung, we have Mr. Crain and Edmund Chung, CEO of DotAsia organization, joining discussion online. Can Mr. Crain and Ms. Chung hear us? Mr. Crain and Ms. Chung?
Hello. We can hear you.
Perfect.
We can hear you.
Perfect. Thank you very much, misters. I'll now hand the floor to the moderator, Ms. Chung, and let's welcome Ms. Chung and also 2 on-site panelists on the stage. Thank you.
Yeah, Vicky and Pei. Yeah, please. Okay. Good morning. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us at the first plenary discussion. I think we have already had a very good discussion foundation. Yeah, because Chung has given us a very broad, great, and clear introduction about the naming system and the challenges with alternative naming system, and also the issues they have raised. So I think in the first plenary discussion, we have 4 panelists. I think I still need to introduce them to you, especially Chung. I think Chung has mentioned that he is the Senior Vice President and Chief Technology Officer at ICANN, and responsible for the oversight of the IANA functions. And I would like to introduce you that Chung is also, Chung as a member of the ICANN's executive team, Chung works with staff and the community to enable and enhance capability that improve the overall security, stability, and the resiliency of the Internet's identifier system and associated infrastructure. Prior to his time at ICANN organization, Chung worked as part of the executive management team at RAP-NCC, one of the 5 RIRs in Amsterdam. And Chung also has extensive experience in domain name system, DNS, administration and managing Internet infrastructure services. And our second panelist is Edmund. Yeah, I think many friends are familiar with Edmund. Edmund is a social innovator and entrepreneur. I like the introduction. Yeah. Edmund currently serves as the CEO of DotAsia organization. In the past 2 years, I was also the board director of DotAsia. And Edmund also served the board of Make a Difference Institute and head of the secretariat for the APR IGF, which just 2 weeks ago in Singapore. And Edmund is also currently the board director of ICANN. He did a lot of things. I think I will stop here. And our third panelist is Vicky Zheng. Dr. Zheng works for the Ministry of Digital Affairs in Taiwan. That's a new ministry. And she worked as my colleague in NCC, and she majored in the wireless communication. And right now, she and her colleagues are mainly engaged in the regulating telecommunication numbers, frequency, and other resources, and supervising the administration of TWNIC. And she is also serving as the representative from Taiwan to the GAC of ICANN. Okay. And the TWNIC board member. And our 4th panelist is Pei Xingao Pei. Pei is an advocate and a community member of Handshake blockchain. I think you have already heard John mentioned about the handshake blockchain domain. It's a decentralized DNS root zone. He is the founder and the director of Dott Domains, which is a blockchain registry providing services including domain registration, TLD resale agency, and blockchain domain promotion in Taiwan. And he is also the co-founder and the chief investment officer at Argo Blocks Consultant. He developed an investment thesis on censorship resistant technologies based on his past 8 years research. Okay, so right now, I think in the very beginning, we are going to have Edmund to give us your insight about the topic. Okay, the floor is yours, and you have 20 minutes. Edmund.
Thank you. I probably won't use all 20 minutes. I look forward to a discussion, especially excited to have Pei on the panel, that we can have some further discussion. In fact, John has talked about most of the things that I was planning to talk about, and in a very clear form. So I guess I'll just highlight a few things and maybe talk a little bit about my experience, going through this as well. So yes, definitely start with the topic on what is called the ICP3. I think it's a very important document that ICANN created 20 years ago. In fact, that was when I started participating at ICANN, and the issue of alternate routes were a hot topic back then, and there were companies like new.net, there were companies like Real Names, there were various iterations of that. And one of the things that brought me to ICANN was internationalized domain names, IDNs, and different domain names in different languages. And one of the challenges back then was, in fact, continued to be, but was that ICANN was not supporting IDNs. It was the root system did not immediately jump onto IDNs. There are good reasons for that, as we learned. But back then, there were a provider that provided IDNs in alternate route, and basically they were claiming to create colonies of users across the world. And interestingly, whereas my company kind of quote unquote actually, ICANN community attracted me to start participating. It's a long and it's a very long process, and it took 10 years to just get the IDN top level domains in place, and another 10 years, actually, those are the 20 years, another 10 years to get us close to finalizing the policies. Whereas back then, 20 years ago, our competitor had tens of millions of dollars in investor money, while we were surviving on scraps, building end-to-end systems for the ICANN DNS and for registrars and registries. So there is money to be made in these alternate root systems, and there's no question about that. One thing, though, is that as the IDN is now incorporated into the root at ICANN, those systems went away completely. So I think that's an interesting experience, at least for me. So one of the things about the DNS, and I think John mentioned already, but I'd like to highlight, is that having alternate root systems it is actually what is called, it's not a bug, but a feature. It was designed, the DNS system was designed such that, yes, you can actually operate a completely alternate route. But the question is whether that is the internet, the one world, one internet that we talk about, and whether, it is used in that way. There are good uses for, I think, alternate routes. For example, RFIDs. That's probably a very good example. It's in a very contained environment. RFIDs utilizes the DNS system. I think it's called the ONS. John might be able to correct me, but and it basically uses the same technology, the same DNS, and it's on a completely alternate route, but it doesn't spill over to the broader internet as we understand it. Especially, when it's contained within the system and users of that system understands that is for a particular purpose. I think that is really what alternate routes are for. And for the broader sense in terms of the internet, that's what ICANN is for. That's why we want one internet, so that we can have interoperability and compatibility and just open access to different resources. So if an alternate root system, whether it's blockchain or not, if it's contained within a system, I think that's okay. But when it spills over, it starts creating issue. And when it becomes intentionally, it's used to intentionally confuse users and consumers, that's probably not okay. And that causes a fragmentation. When when contained use spills over and intentionally being used to confuse, that becomes a fragmentation issue that dilutes the trust overall by, for users of the internet and of the DNS system. Competition is not an issue. I don't think ICANN, for example, or the ICANN community is under threat for competition. It is about the multi-stakeholder model. It is the multi-stakeholder governance model that is under threat by unilateral decisions of commercial interests, when it starts to confuse and claim to be universal. When a naming system, is for a particular contained system, of course that's not a problem. But when it claims to be a universal system, and when it goes to mainstream, it becomes an interesting question. So as John also highlighted, and I'll add to it, many of the, some people, and I would not defend it this way, but ICANN is slow sometimes. ICANN could be fast as well in certain other issues. But the reason why it is slow is because the interests of different stakeholders, and because we want to maintain a secure and stable internet, that some of the discussions need to be slower. Things like rights protection, policies against confusion, human rights, caring for the underprivileged, how different communities can participate in the policy development processes. These things take time, and these are some of the reason why some people feel that ICANN is slow. But if you look at, for example, IDNs, I mentioned it is a topic that I'm very passionate about for over 20 years. Is it slow? Yeah, it's glacial, but it is for purposes. Dealing with the different IDN languages, for example, Chinese domain names, how to deal with the simplified Chinese and traditional Chinese issue, for example, that took a lot of time just to get consensus about the framework for dealing with usage of traditional Chinese and simplified Chinese in the same sense. And if you look at, for example, some of the alternate root systems, of course they don't take care of that. And that means that a Chinese domain name used in Taiwan or Hong Kong or mainland China could be problematic because they are not mapped together. It's like, I think you being there in Taiwan would appreciate that. Many Chinese, increasingly, especially in Hong Kong, for example, treat traditional Chinese and simplified Chinese as the same. It's almost like in English, the capital letter and the small letter. They don't look the same, but they're used exactly the same. Technically, they're two different domain names, but policy-wise, it has to be mapped together. Do the alternate root system take care of that? No, unfortunately. So these are some of the issues. And then we talk about abuses. I think John touched on that as well. One thing interesting about DNS abuse or phishing, malware, and those kind of things, some of the proponents of alternate systems or blockchain domains say, look, we have no abuse in our space. But the reality is that, of course, there is no abuse because it's not universally used, because there are not enough users to use them. When it becomes mainstream, and if it becomes mainstream, the criminals will take note. They will come in, and then there will be abuse. Just like many years ago when Apple made a comeback, right? People said, the Apple OS, the Mac OS is so good. It's no security problem, no viruses. And I was sitting there. Yeah, maybe it's because not enough people use it, so that people won't create those viruses. Then, of course, we know now that, of course, all systems could be attacked. And that's where policies come in place. That's why it's important. It's the governance structure that needs to be in place. So one of the things I feel interesting is that whereas a distributed system, a decentralized system, is very interesting, ultimately, if it becomes mainstream, we need a governance structure to handle these type of issues, to let different people participate in the discussion, and to handle abuses. So why not ICANN? The question really is, when the system grows to a global scale, to mainstream, it will require this type of structure. It will require a governance. It will require a decision-making process to look at, how to deal with these issues about abuse, about language, about human rights, about participation by different stakeholders. So I think, we welcome, from the ICANN community, I think we welcome the participation in discussion on these issues. ICANN is not perfect, far from it. There's one of the things about ICANN I think I'm quite excited about is that it continues to evolve. The system, the structures, and the governance processes, the decision-making processes, even the policy development processes continue to evolve. Now we're very, hot on small teams, which wasn't the case maybe 10 years ago. In the future, there will be other structures that allow ICANN to address issues in the right way. So I think one of the things I want to leave with is that come and participate at ICANN and make it better and make it address the issues that some of the alternate routes want to address. IDN was a good example. Core, which is one of the registries now at ICANN, was also a good example that joined the ICANN community and make this single internet even stronger. And in terms of use of private spaces, actually the ICANN board just made a resolution last week in the meeting in Kuala Lumpur for private use top-level domains, and that is coming along. So in fact, there will be top-level domains that you can use for private use, for contained use, for your own home or for your own system. That is coming. So ICANN is actually addressing these issues quite proactively as well. So I will end by saying, using blockchain for provisioning, like decentralized provisioning, is really interesting. Even you should consider it for WHOIS issues like registrant data. For example, the disclosure of registrant data based on smart contracts, I think is really interesting and definitely worth studying. But utilizing, blockchain or alternate routes as an excuse to confuse user is not. That is a kind of abuse. Making sure that the users understand that it is, what kind of system it is really, what is important and what a responsible provider should do. So that's sort of where I want to leave it, and looking forward to the discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Edmund. I think Edmund has shared his insights relating to the fragmentation, competition, and how ICANN procedure dealing with the different multiple stakeholders, and why it takes so long, and the DNS abuse, and why ICANN. So I'm going to invite Vicky and Pei and giving us your insights about this issue. And maybe later we can have interaction within all the panelists and our audience here. Yeah. Pay first? Okay.
Hi. Hi, John and Edmund. It's happy to talk to you. My name is Pei, and for people who know me from the crypto industry, they know I'm a Bitcoiner, so I support Bitcoin. I love this cryptocurrency and blockchain development. And I found, and then I found Handshake, which is a domain name project, which I'm very passionate about this because I found Handshake is like, it found another usage of like Bitcoin code. So for people who don't know what is Handshake, it actually uses DNS infrastructure. So it's very different from other blockchain domain. For example, DNS and Unstoppable Domain, they are using Ethereum smart contract. So you record your DNS record on Ethereum blockchain. But so it's very difficult to host yourself and very difficult to quite slow to query. But Handshake is utilizing DNS infrastructure. So when I run a Handshake resolver, it's actually a light node on my computer or on my phone. So it's very similar to my phone is querying ICANN root zone, but instead it will ask if you will query both, because for now it's not so much, because it reserves all the ICANN TLD. So no one can actually squat the ICANN TLD on Handshake. And every Handshake, every ICANN previous owner can claim their Handshake version of TLD on Handshake. So there's no collision for now on Handshake and ICANN. So the resolver can query both. That it can work like if I want to visit an ICANN website and my browser or resolver like a normal legacy TLD. But if I query a Handshake website, it will go to the Handshake blockchain and it still goes through the traditional DNS route. So it's just a different root zone TLD and go to the TLD server and the SLD server. So that is basically how Handshake works. And Handshake is like Bitcoin, so there's also like a multi-stakeholder model, but it's invented by Bitcoin. So to me, it's like a different approach. I totally understand that we need a global multi-stakeholder organization like ICANN to make sure there's only one namespace, no confusion for users. But what I learned from Bitcoin, a very important thing is there will always be new project, new, for example, in cryptocurrency, there's always new token, new blockchain, and that is totally fine. And you can see sometimes they share the same cryptocurrency tickers. Like there's some same name or same similar project appear. But that is exchange or some application, they have to figure out, okay, which one is which, right? So that will always happen. But the reason is because it's open source movement, and open source software is you can start whatever project you want. And I don't think it's the best thing. I think it's just a different approach. Like in ICANN, the multi-stakeholder model is like we maintain a single namespace by coordinate with each other. But in Bitcoin or in open source approach, it's like decided by free market adoption, or you can say it's a consensus. So to like echo to the report or the Chung just represent, I think it can be these two can coexist. Like we have 1,500 TODs in ICANN system, but Handshake provide another way we can register whatever we want to register under the rule on chain. So we have to follow the rule on chain to do the auction, to win the domain. So there's a life cycle of a domain name on blockchain. So we have to follow the rule. But that can be coexist because we can say there is 1,500 ICANN TODs, but there's millions of other TODs on Handshake now. For now, there's like over 7 million TODs on Handshake now. And I think it can coexist because even though there's some, I believe in the future there will be collision. Like, for example, I can release a new round of new TGLD, right? So there will be some, let's say, 1,000 new GTLD collide with Handshake. But there is still millions of other TODs that will never collide with ICANN. And that will always happen because for browser or for resolver, they can decide if they want to adopt that. Right? If some people, some user, they want to use a blockchain website, and for them, why not to let them resolve, right? So that will always happen. But the point is, you cannot stop this. So why not just like have the most legit ICANN TODs still under ICANN control, but we have to accept that resolver or browser, they will try to adopt this new kind of TODs. So I think that's why I envision like it can be coexist, and I think I can. And another thing is, I really think Handshake is not an enemy of ICANN because they share the same ethos or same idea. Because ICANN is like a multi-stakeholder, but Handshake is also, we participate by like global community. I'm from Taiwan, and I know all the community come from all the global community. So we are minor developers, community members. So we are like, it's just a different governance model. And for example, the most popular Handshake TODs, there's .c and .tx. They are very active community member, and their TODs already sell on some of the biggest registrar right now. I can see these TOD can be coexist and even cooperate with ICANN because, as I know, ICANN will never release a single letter and 2 letters because of the rules. So there will no collision between these TODs. And if we like understand or accept that unavoidable, the browser will try to adopt this. So why not like for ICANN to propose a standard or guideline for those resolvers? for example, I saw your slide, like, it seems it would be chaos if there were really different namespace coexist. But to me, there's a simple solution is it's just for browser, they just need to define a resolving order, right? So we can put ICANN at the top. And if the TOD you are querying is not in the ICANN zone, it goes to the second priority. There's another zone. And you never hit at the second priority, it go to the third. So for browser or any application they want to adopt this, the only thing they want to decide is what is the order. And who decide the order is like, we don't want to let just browser to decide that. So maybe ICANN can give some guideline or give some, like, I don't know, like some standard on this. And also I think Handshake is it's a perfect suit for ICANN as a testnet or testbed, right? It's like you can test, because there's millions of different TOD, people playing with this TOD, building business on these TODs. And some people like us, we are selling SLD on this TOD, and people also selling some NFT or doing those different, like, different application or use it in a different way than traditional TOD. So why not treat this like a testnet or testbed? Because if some of the TOD was develop a good utility or a good way to, like, good brand on this, like ICANN can cooperate with them, right? Or can integrate them into the ICANN system. So that's why I see, like, it's not a confrontation between these two, and also business owner on Handshake TOD, they want to be, they don't want to do this, like, the criminal thing or skip the safeguard thing, because if they are really doing a legit business, they have to keep their reputation. They want to do they want to resolve trademark dispute problem, right? Everything we are learning from ICANN. We are learning from the domain industry. So I think we can cooperate with each other. That's my point.
Okay, thank you, Pei. I think Pei has gave us an introduction of how Handshake operates, and it seems like maybe we can discuss and develop some kind of governance framework in the future. I think Chung and Edmund must have some opinions and comment on Pei's opinions, but I think I would like to invite Vicky to share her insights first. Then we can interactive between our panelists. Yeah, Vicky.
Thank you. Thank you, Nicole. I think very short. It's my honor to be here because it's my first time to be in TWIGF. Let me, just as Nicole introduced, I'm the Deputy Director of General in the new Ministry of Digital Affairs. The Ministry of Digital Affairs was officially formed on 27th August 2022. The abbreviation of Ministry of Digital Affairs, MODA, sounds like motor in Taiwanese English. So the new motor is responsible for promoting Taiwan's overall digital policy inclusion, innovation, and will contribute to Taiwan's digital development on the first best track. MODA oversees ICT's fields. Some portfolios of incumbent agencies are shifting to MODA, such as the National Communications Commission, NCC, the Ministry of Economic Affairs, MOEA, Ministry of Transportation and Communications, MOTC, National Development Council, and the Executive Yuan's Department of Cybersecurity. MODA is the champion of the multi-stakeholder approach to internet governance and inclusive policymaking. And ICANN is the crucial channel of Taiwan's participation in global internet governance. As for the blockchain DNS alternative name domain systems, I think it's a very new issue. MODA is still observing the development, but from the aspect of encouraging innovative application and development, it seems to have positive influence to the industry. It has made an impact on today's technology by revolutionizing the financial industry and has been followed by extending blockchain to span several other industries and capabilities for its capabilities in verification. So I think we will keep updated with the latest development and to follow international internet governance rules and norms, and to watch this development. That's my short introduction. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you, Vicky. And I know Vicky has prepared some questions. Maybe she will raise to John and Edmund later. I think I would like to invite John to comment the pace opinions and his introduction about the how a blockchain domain, especially handshake, operates. John.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yeah. Yes, we can.
Yes, perfect. So very interesting. You know, one of the things that Edmund was talking about is the need for evolution, and I see technology mostly as being agnostic around policy. Sometimes technology is developed so it avoids policy, or certain policies cannot be applied. I too once thought that coding and technology could solve everything. I think in this case, it's a little naive to believe that browsers can solve these kind of problems. Sort lists and priority lists on where to search are not a new concept. We've obviously looked at them before. They've been used in places. The problem with a sort list and ranking is somebody has to decide the ranking. So that's a policy discussion that would need to occur. But also the end user, not the registrant, not the registrar or the registry or the policymaker, but the end user needs to know to which namespace they are going. So if I hand somebody a business card with a identifier on it saying email that ends in a TLD, if the user doesn't know which namespace it's in, there's a good chance they'll go to the wrong place. And that wrong place could be beneficial, it could be harmless, or it could be very harmful. I think the concept that because registries and registrars are well-meaning, that we won't have criminal activity is extremely naive. We have this problem in the ICANN world, and I don't believe any of our registries or registrars want to have bad reputations either. But I've spent the last 20 odd years working in the identifier industry, and a lot of those years working on the way the identifiers get abused and misused. And, there's a movie about a baseball pitch that says, if you build it, they will come. The same will happen for the bad guys. And when that occurs, you must have remedies in place to disrupt or mitigate that criminal activity. And I'm not seeing that in any of the alternative name systems today. Doesn't mean it can't be developed. I understand that policies can be developed, but I'm not seeing them today. So that's interesting. And, collisions may indeed occur. In fact, they almost are guaranteed to occur if some of the namespaces, and I'm not going to pick on Handshake here because there are multiple namespaces. As I showed in my slide, there could be multiple collisions. So they will occur. And that will lead to user confusion at some level. And sometimes it will be purely accidental, and sometimes it will be nefarious people deliberately making things clash so that they can mislead people. And that is the crux of the problem with alternative namespaces, is that the end user, generally speaking, has no way of knowing which namespace they are in. Today, if they type in a browser, their expectation is to be on the public internet. If they start applying various shims, or their ISPs start applying various shims, or even the browsers start applying various shims, that experience will no longer be expected. You know, it will not be something that you can guarantee that will work in a particular way. And that's kind of core to how the internet works. When you type in an identifier, you expect, the user expects, to know where they're going. So, you know, these are things that could be solved by policy, maybe. I think the idea of choosing which particular alternative namespaces are the good namespaces is interesting. I can think of about 20 out there at the moment. There are probably a lot more. So, you know, which one are the good and which one are the bad, and they will all tell you that theirs is the best and theirs is the most important, and theirs should be part of a test bed. But, you know, how do you pick those? So there's some quite interesting, not technical problems here, but policy problems around how you solve these things. And honestly, I'm not convinced. I mean, for example, if one of those names is used for abusive behavior, how does a legitimate law enforcement agency, following due process and all the safeguards that international laws provide, actually disrupt, mitigate, and then via attribution actually make an arrest of a criminal in those kind of situations? And the privacy mechanisms that are very deliberate, and I think for good reason, are kind of counter to that. So you know, I would actually say to Pi, please do come to ICANN meetings. Please, we actually have sessions specifically on emerging identifiers and new identifiers. So please do come or send people from Handshake to ICANN meetings so we can have those kind of discussions and we can see if there are solutions. At the moment, I'm not convinced, but I'm always open to convincing. But more importantly, I think the ICANN community, because I'm just a staff member, but the ICANN community is very open to these kind of discussions and figuring out how we evolve the internet.
Yeah, thank you, John. I think, yeah, next time, yeah, please join the ICANN community and discuss with the different multiple stakeholders. Yeah, I think maybe Edmund can have some suggestion and comment.
Yeah, I think, thank you, Pei, for the presentation. I think it's very interesting. And I think part of, I agree partially that, no, not partially, part of me is saying that I'm not convinced yet, but what I am convinced by your description is to come and participate. And as John mentioned, in fact, the ICANN policy development process, you asked, you know, why don't ICANN do something? Actually, the way that ICANN works is that it's a bottom-up process. So when you come to ICANN, you can raise the issue. Could be through the at-large, could be through the GNSO, that's called the Generic Names Supporting Organization. You can join the meetings. Most of them are pretty open. It's only when we talk about contracts that you see a closed session. All other sessions are open and raise the issue. And the process itself is such that when there are enough people from the bottom-up process, then a policy development process will be created such that, you know, for example, let's say multiple namespaces, then it will go through the process of creating that. So yeah, it's completely open, and I do encourage you to come and participate in the different stakeholder groups. Please have Handshake and maybe others, Unstoppable and others could also come and participate as well. And I think the ICANN community is quite open to that. A couple of things I guess I wanted to clarify. So one is in terms of non-collision, I was told that that's not the case. For example, the recently launched .kids already exist in Handshake and Unstoppable, and .kids is a TLD that was applied for in 2012, and it's now launched and operational this year. And unfortunately, it's already created in the some of the blockchain domains space as well. So there are conflicts already. It's not entirely true that there are no conflicts currently. So it's important to note that. The other thing is about retiring TLDs. So in the future, if there are conflicts, is there a process to retire certain TLDs to avoid those conflicts, as I guess you mentioned? And really interesting to see how Handshake or others might retire TLDs and what the process may be, and how to come to consensus with that free market process. Because if it's free market and I'm running a TLD, of course I'm not going to retire it just because I can create some new TLDs, right? So a free market process may or may not work in those situations, and perhaps those are some of the things that need to be dealt with. Finally, in terms of single character TLDs, in fact, if you look at the upcoming policies in the what is called the subsequent procedures, single character Chinese TLDs are going to be accepted. So policies evolve, and even at ICANN. So single character TLD is also going to be released in the most likely in the upcoming rounds as well. So and two-character domains, those are the reason why those are reserved is because that's for country codes. And for that one, it's actually under the ISO 3166. It's a standard, it's an international standard that uses these two-character codes, including for mail, postal mail, and also ICANN utilizes that for two-character English character TLD. So I think just to add a few things to what was mentioned.
Thank you. Thanks, John's and Edmund's precious comments. I think, Pei, you can have a quick response. Yeah, because I would like to invite Vicky to raise her questions.
Yeah, sure. So yeah, I agree. We don't want to that browser to decide this, but the point is it's happening now, and many of the blockchain domains is adopted by some of the browsers. So that is why I really don't like this, because it's like to maintain a single namespace, but with that the browser application layer, they have too much power to decide which is the namespace, because it's doesn't matter that there's only one root zone. They can add whatever on the application layer, right? They resolve unstoppable domain or ENS by adding some rules like, if this domain is an unstoppable domain, then go to the unstoppable domain server to get it. So that's bad, because it's not goes through the protocol level. And I think the special, why Handshake is special is go from the protocol level. So it's still utilize the DNS infrastructure, but it's not give browser or any application that much of power to decide what to resolve and what is the whole namespace looks like. So that's the thing I think very different. And also I want to add a small question is like, because their Handshake reserve all the TLD for legacy TLD. So I'm asking, is that possible, like from the technical level, or or maybe policy level that ICANN can claim .ICANN on Handshake, and like DotAsia can claim DotAsia on Handshake blockchain. And like you can get, as I know, you can get like 1 million words of Handshake that is also reserved for ICANN to participate in the governance of Handshake blockchain. So I won't ask, is that possible in that, or any difficulty to do that?
So I can answer that pretty straight.
John. Yeah.
From an ICANN standpoint, I don't see why we would do that and increase the confusion. It seems counterproductive for us to promote an alternative naming system that may cause confusion. I think if any of these namespaces, Handshake or the others, had, you know, robust policy fora that made sure that they were, you know, not putting at risk the interoperability of the network, then there could be a discussion. But I think at this moment, it's just not going to happen.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess I can add a little bit to that as well. That what you just said seems a little bit self-contradicting, because I think you mentioned that the at least the current policy is not to create conflict, but to actually consciously create the conflict would probably be self-contradicting. Is that so I'm not sure I understand.
Yeah, but I think the good approach is keep discussing and participating. I think we can join together within the ICANN community, then discuss this issue in the future. Okay, so I would like to invite Vicky. I think, yeah, this is a good opportunity to interact with the ICANN CTO and the board director. Yes.
I have 3 questions. The first question is just out of my curiosity, because according to a poll result in ICANN 75, is the internet currently fragmented? I think according to the result, 53% respond that the internet is fragmented, but the 47% respond no. So what's your viewpoint on this investigation? Interesting poll result. And the second is a technical question. DNS abuse has been discussed in recent years. With the decentralized characteristic of blockchain DNS, will it increase the cost and difficulty to abuse detection and prevention? And the third question is about policy. Just as Mr. Crain highlighted, there are some challenges of alternative naming systems. For example, compatibility issue, name collision issues. If the blockchain DNS and legacy DNS are developed without coordination, what's your recommendation for governments? What we can do to deal with these challenges? Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Vicky. After John and Edmund's response, then I will open the time to the queue. Okay, John, please.
I'll try and keep them short. So on the first one, why confusion about is or is not the internet fragmented? That is partially, I think, because there is no clear definition of what that means, but also because some forms of fragmentation are desirable. That there are different behaviors depending on where you are on the internet. Not that they will send you somewhere else, but they will sometimes block things. Think of an ISP, an internet service provider, who uses block lists to prevent the loading of malicious sites. Some people see that as fragmentation, some do not. So the terminology around this is actually still fairly new. You'll also hear terms like splinternets, which is very trendy and a little bit scary in the word, but it's just a new word for a type of fragmentation. So depending on who you ask, they may have a slightly different definition of what fragmentation means and whether or not it is harmful. I would point you to a article from APNIC, the Asian Pacific Network Information Center, and Jeff Houston that came out today on fragmentation, which has some interesting insights into his thoughts about fragmentation. So that's why you get a mixed feeling in the poll. It's different understandings of what it means. On the issue of the increase of abuse costs, if these namespaces evolve and they do not have protections and policies in place to tackle abusive behavior, malicious behavior of whatever kind, then yes, not only will the cost go up, but also the complexity will go up. With every namespace you add, law enforcement and those combating, often also in the private industry, it's not just law enforcement that do that, combating malicious behavior on the internet will have a harder job. That's, I think, just a reality. And, you know, it's a cost benefits analysis as to whether the advantages that some of these namespaces purport to give are worth that cost, but the cost will go up. And I will leave something else for Edmund to answer, otherwise I'll steal all the questions and he will have nothing left to say. So I'll leave the third one to you, Edmund.
Yeah, how government face these issues.
Yeah.
No worries. I actually wanted to if you could repeat the third question, because I didn't quite get it. But just adding on to what John said, I totally agree with John. But in terms of the fragmentation part, yes, I think it's very clear that people don't have a clear definition or a common definition across the board in terms of fragment. You know, whether the internet is fragmented. But the bigger point here, I think, is the threat to the multi-stakeholder governance model. That's where the larger community has some consensus around in that we need to preserve this, and there are certain forces that are trying to break up the multi-stakeholder governance model and pointing to that it's not efficient, not effective. And those type of issues that I think is at the heart of the fragmentation discussion. In terms of DNS abuse, I think, you know, just like really any other cybersecurity issue, as the network grows, of course, the cost of mitigating abuse grows. But the key is to put in place policies and processes that also increase the cost of abuse. And that's what the community is doing. Because if you increase the cost of abuse, yes, your cost of detection and mitigation goes up, but if you increase the cost of abuse at the same time, you know, you try to, you know, at least get to a kind of a dynamic balance, if you will. I didn't quite get the third question. I'm sorry. I understand it's about governments, but
yeah, you can repeat. I think this relating to the government, how to cope with all these challenges, right?
Just because as you highlighted in the keynote speech and in the previous section, there are so many challenges with the alternative naming system. So, in your viewpoint, how can we tackle with how does a government agencies to deal with this problem? What we can do? Yeah. And your suggestion or recommendation?
It's a very good question, and of course, come participate at the GAC, which the TW government already does participate at the GAC, and raise some of these issues through the Government Advisory Committee at ICANN. But also, I think that's why I'm actually quite excited to hear Audrey speak earlier today about the need for different stakeholders to participate in policy development. So I think for governments around the world, having a multi-stakeholder model for consultation and even to the point of making policy recommendations would be, I think, the good approach, because then you can take in views from the technical side, from the industry side, and from different areas, including from emerging technologies like Handshake and other identifiers that come along.
Yeah, and if I may, just to add to that, at ICANN we have a entire department related to engaging with governments. We have seen some interesting outcomes from regulation by governments where the technologists and the industries were not included in the early dialogue, and some will say that's our own fault for missing it. But things like GDPR that had really interesting unintended consequences, and that's not per se the fault of those trying to do the regulation, because it really is, as Edmund said, it's everybody's job to get involved in that. So if the governments can indeed include industry and technologists in the discussions and regulate with extreme care, I would say, because there's always some secondary outcome from some of these regulations and rules. So yeah, come to ICANN, as you already do, participate in the GAC, but also on the local level, talk to your technologists, talk to your industry people to figure out what the effects of any policy would be.
Yeah,
Thank you.
yeah. Vicky is already the representative of GAC Taiwan to ICANN, so it will be. I think there will be a very good discussion in the future. And as to the DNS abuse, I think right now TWNIC has already set up the close collaboration with DotAsia and APNIC. Yeah, I think they will report to you. Yeah. Okay. I will leave the time to the audience, and Guo Wei is already on the queue. Okay, Guo Wei. Yeah.
Very nice to see John and also the Eamon online. And originally I expect both of you is coming to Taiwan. Well, here is my question, also the comment. First of all, I think for the blockchain, let me take off the mask. That will be much clearer. I think there's interesting about handshaking the blockchain DNS.
I think we can hear him. Here he comes.
Can you hear it? Can you hear well? Good.
We can now.
Okay. I think the blockchain DNS is getting popular in the last few years. And particularly in Taiwan right now, I think a lot of people doing the blockchain industry, and they are using the blockchain in many different applications. My first question, and also the comment, and to the industry here, and also for the Chung and Eamon. I think the problem, the question is, the blockchain industry or blockchain engineer, they believe decentralized is so critical for them. And they believe that decentralized is one of the way for the future. And the reason they are thinking about ICANN engage of the DNS, they think the ICANN is not decentralized. You are kind of the centralized agent. Okay. Of course, my personal opinion, decentralized doesn't equal to democracy. If we are talking about the value of the internet, decentralized is not necessary. It's a democracy. Decentralized can be another hole. You just jump in and you cannot get out. You are going to another spatial systems. So I think actually John actually in the very, the keynote speech you're talking about, part of it. And so first of all is decentralized. I think that is a part. What is the blockchain industry they always like to emphasize. And if they believe that is a decentralized is a future, I'd like to ask Edmund, since you are a board member right now, how you can encourage those of the decentralized people coming to ICANN. You are not a decentralized agent. You are not a decentralized institution. You are kind of the so-called one world, one internet. You are looking the DNS IP address is a unique identifier. How these two kind of different engineer or industry can work together in the ICANN community or platform to making a discussion to resolve the issues? I think that is the first question for the industry and at the same time for John or Edmund. I think the second issue, I think, is very critical, particularly for the governments. Of course, many governments looking for innovation because government always thinking about is a possible that local industry can have an innovation. So we can grow our economy, its competitiveness in the world. And innovation is one of the key. But the problem is, I think the government is not only take care of the innovation, at the same time, you have to have some kind of procedure to handle how the innovation in the right way. No matter it's a blockchain or any other new technology coming out, innovation is just a part of it. And if anybody in the economy, technical hype, technical hype is you have a new innovation, you're going up, and then you cannot find a good business and coming down, maybe a new mature way you can keep going. I think the government is not only need to take care of the innovation, at the same time you need to take care of what is the regulation behind it. You can make sure this innovation go into the right way, not only helping the economy, at the same time making a harmony in the whole societies. And I think just like the last question, the people asking about fragmentation. Fragmentation is very difficult to have a definition. I think maybe it's a better way is less cyberspace. First of all, we are looking for free and open cyberspace. But at the same time, we like to have go through the democratic process to developing certain of the regulation to make it. If that is one cyberspace in the particular country, they are not free, open, and not go through the democratic process. And the message cannot be kind of open access. I think maybe that is a possible definition of the fragmentation. One of the ways we can explain the most extreme is North Korea. Of course, there is more than that. But I think that is one of the definition of the fragmentation I like to express. Thank you.
Okay, Guowei raised two questions. I think the first goes to Edmund, maybe John together.
I'm happy to go first. In terms of decentralization, I think it's a bit strange for me because I believe Handshake root servers are also centralized because you have all the TLDs in one place. So it's not a decentralization issue at all. It's about decentralization of provisioning, which is good. I think provisioning under particular TLDs, that can certainly be decentralized, but I don't think blockchain domains themselves are decentralized in that sense, because the root servers are still serving the same zone, I think. I could be wrong, but if it works as the DNS, then that part is centralized, and that part is also centralized at ICANN. I think who is decentralization in terms of requests for who is information and so on, that's also very interesting to look at, and probably can use blockchain and smart contract technologies there. But the namespace itself, I doubt that the blockchain domains themselves are decentralized that way. In terms of policy development, I think decentralization is actually seen in the RIRs, the regional internet registries. So it's not concentrated at ICANN or IANA, and that has been quite successful. The CCTLDs are also decentralized in that sense. A lot of the policies for each of the CCTLDs is not done at ICANN. So in fact, decentralization is happening, and I think it'd be interesting to look at decentralized provisioning and who is as well. So yeah, that's my response to that.
Yeah, and John, would you like to respond? Guowei's question?
Yep. So to the first question, decentralization, pretty much what Edmund said. Remember that slide where I said we are all on one internet because we agree to follow certain protocols, certain namespaces, certain rules. So in that sense, there is some form of centralization, but if you want a single point of entry or a single frame of reference, you kind of have to have a little bit of centralization. But then you try and decentralize as much as you can. So, the CCTLDs make their own policies. The RIRs are decentralized. The registrars, there are many of them. There are certain rules they have to follow and certain things that they are free to do on their own. So there are some expected behaviors, and then in the commercial realm, they have a lot more freedom. So yes, there is an element of centralization to ICANN, but it's the element that is sort of necessary to have one internet. And of course, the policies are made through this bottom-up process. So there's no real centralization of the ICANN policies in the sense that our board, which Edmund is on, does not get to make the policies. They get to approve the policies, right? And that's a very important distinction. ICANN does not, the org or the board do not actually develop and make the policies. That's this decentralized community, if you like. So, ICANN is in many ways decentralized. And there are some elements, technical elements, where it's not. And there are other elements of the internet, such as content and, the application layer and design of applications, where ICANN has absolutely nothing to do with it. That is completely separate, and the protocols are made somewhere else as well, in the ITF, the Internet Engineering Task Force. So the internet is very decentralized in and of itself.
Yeah, so the issue is not 1 and 0, right? Yeah. Then
never is.
Yeah. Vicky, would you like to some response to Guowei's question?
I think I agree with Guowei's comments. I think MODA is the champion of the multi-stakeholder approach to internet governance and inclusive policymaking. I think we not only to promote the innovation development, I think we have to collaborate with different multi-stakeholders, for example, industry side and the end user side. I think not only for the innovation only. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, we are looking forward to the operation and the effective works from MODA. Yeah. Time is already okay. One short comment, not question.
It's a very short 1 minute comment.
Okay.
The reason I'm saying that, because I think John or Eamon, you might be saw that That is, I can have a video conference with Windsurf and also the Steve Crocker. I think you saw that. There is one question raised by the blockchain industry to Windsurf and also the Steve Crocker. They say because ICANN is a centralized institution. So the blockchain, we are a decentralized industry. I think I just using that one to ask the question. But anyway, you already answered.
Yeah, we have already got a good answer and just join the internet community, especially ICANN. Okay, so due to the limitation of time, I think we need to end up this section here. Today, I think the plenary discussion is fruitful and the prosperous one. Thank you for all your participation, especially thanks to John and Edmund use video and online with us, and our panelists here, Vicky and Pei. So, and all the participation from our audience, no matter here or online. Thank you for all, and hope to meet you in the near future very soon. See you soon. Bye-bye. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Chung, and all panelists on site and online. Thank you very much for the animated discussion. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll now break for lunch. The afternoon session will start at 1:30 p.m. UTC +8. There will be 2 parallel tracks this afternoon. Panel 1 and 4 will be at room A, while panel 2 and 3 will be at room B. Please scan the QR code on the wall for more agenda information. For online participation, we'd like to remind you that there will be another YouTube link for the streaming, and you may check the YouTube description below for that. And please be back by 1:30. We'll see you later after lunch. Thank you.